the same, unfortunately, is true for the psychometrics underlying the psychological theory that's underneath those models, right? So, as I mentioned before, the state-trait problem. So there are some traits, universal features that stay the same over a lifetime, may change a bit, but for example, personality, right? And then you of course have the states then, and then the states, they are changing moods maybe. So maybe people are aggressive when they take a video interview. And you have maybe blunt and generic norm groups, right? And when you have a blunt and when you think about it, you get people, let's say, managerial and professional norm group of Japan, personality test. And you now have managerials and professionals, which means everyone from a certain career level onwards, for a company that produces cars, for a company that produces paper, for a company that produces timber products, and so on. So which means you have the same tools for the same position, for different positions in different industries, which have a total different demand, and you use the same norm group. It can't work, right? And if you look in what personality tests are doing, I think we have in our blog, right, a very nice article about this. Why personality tests are useless, right? They're of course not useless, but the way they are deployed is in a way useless, because what's happening is that you have a very dumb system that in the very end produces most of the time conscientiousness equals higher job performance. Of course, but if someone does conscientiously their work, it would be most likely be a good prospect, but you may want more. You may want some areas of your company where someone is very extroverted, some areas where someone is very analytic. You got the point. And then something which is interesting, that now candidates started tricking this system as well. When they know there's a kind of automated system in place, some candidates started, for example, adding high-level universities like Harvard with white letters and white crown. You don't see this as a recruiter, but the computer system says, aha, there's something. And what's happening then is that through this, actually, the whole algorithm gets tricked and people get up in the road that wouldn't have been otherwise, right? And same thing, people always ask, we want to have the best candidates. But there is a very nice paper which is discussing about the problem if you look into this dilemma of mediocrity. And this actually looks into, when you always look for the highest performance, you will discriminate against women, because what's going to happen is that you look in who was in the past the top performer, which mostly were men, because more men were in the labor market, and you train the model based on those top performers of the past, which means that it tends to say, well, we're all men, right? There's the women now, they're not in the pool of the top performers of the past. So big problem, especially most of all because you lose out good candidates, right? Not and second, of course, it's highly unfair. Then you have a division in pre and post hire, right? And when you deal with any kind of provider, so whichever company it is, I was with SHL before, and SHL still has this big division between pre-hire and post-hire, right? So when you're in such a situation, what's happening is that you have one product for the pre-hire process, then people get hired and the data gets lost or get wherever, and then you have the post-hire piece, and they're not really separated. So if you want to make a decision in later time, or that has been done along the pipeline, just is not there any longer. You lose information. You have to do twice the effort for nothing. And of course, you can't compare trajectories, etc. And then also many of those new tools, they don't look into other aspects, firmographic, demographics. They don't look into, yes, have you ever thought about that some recruiters are good with some people, and good recruitment managers, they know exactly where to put a recruiter. But this can be used, you can use hard metrics, using people analytics, using machine learning to really use the information, quantify the approaches, what good recruiters are, and make them part of the overall algorithm. And interesting pieces, but if you see what actually is out there and what people say, see there is a huge gap and a huge opportunity, right? Especially in recruitment, where you see that basically only 70% of the managers say recruitment programs need to be more data-driven, right? 71% says that HR needs to improve the recruitment process. 61% say that the long-term impact of recruitment is hard to measure. Sure, of course, because the measurement process in the beginning is flawed and you don't have the data, so it's hard to measure because data is not available. And so we don't need to go in all data points. You get the idea, right? So when the data is not there, when the system is flawed, when it's scattered all over the place, when you don't have access to the full wealth of data, then it's clear that you have a high demand. And in a way, it's also in dire straits, because more and more you will be measured against what you can give to internally, so the company. And of course, if you want to analyze the market, it would be extremely interesting. You see, this is an interesting paper. There was the idea that as soon as a company gets acquired, the R&D department is put directly straight onto the US. So, and someone said, hey, let's look at all the companies out there and see what's happening with them, really. And you see that suddenly it was clear that it's not the case, because R&D has a very important function also in the countries where the products are sold, to adapt the products to the market. And sometimes it's important to really have R&D at a different field, because maybe the availability of talent is at some places higher than in others. So as an example, what came out there is you have to have the number of STEM talents, and it was the infrastructure that must be in place so that you can have a good pool of R&D talent. So if you don't know this, and you start doing your recruitment, you're just doing this in your home countries, and you're maybe the head of recruitment and you report to the CHRO, and you look at the wrong place because you're not aware of global statistics, right? And you can only aware of what your company was successful with in the future. But think about, you may not understand that just by looking around, it would be extremely interesting to understand a bit more and have much less effort. So it's internal topics, it's tools, and it's using quantified measures from the market to understand how you can do much better